Welcome back to another full knife build video. I'm Jakob van der Bruinhorst. Today we're going to be working on a 6-bar multi-bar twist Damascus. And out of this Damascus we're going to make a keyhole integral. And we'll be pressing the keyhole in using the Sfreddo method. So there's a lot that we're going to cover today, but we're going to walk through it together. Let's put this billet in the forge. We got 15 and 20 and 1084. A high carbon and nickel steel and a high carbon and manganese steel, a shiny and a dark layer. Got this billet up to temperature. We're going to give that a couple hits with the power hammer to forge weld it. Once the pieces are stuck together, this is always a magical time, then I can begin drawing out the billet. Forging out this billet is quite easy to do because the power hammer forges evenly from the bottom and top, so the distortion is quite minimal. We're going to let that billet cool, and we'll slice it up into 2 equal length pieces. These are 4 inches by 1 inch in size. Let's give it a test etch. You can see how the layers are. We're going to be sandwiching these layers perpendicularly between these other layers. Now we got a real tall billet. Just welding the ends with the MIG welder so that everything sticks together, and then we slide it back in the forge again. Let's give that some nice taps to forge weld. Since it's such a tall billet, you have to be kind of careful. I kick it on its side, make sure that I forge it evenly from 4 sides. The power hammer I use is a Chinese-made Runfa power hammer. It's a self-contained hammer, meaning it generates its own air to bring the ram up and down. Now that we have a nice long square bar drawn out, let's straighten it out and cool it off. It's going to have to cool a little bit slowly because we're going to do some cutting to it. Now off camera, I went and made a second bar just like this. And we sliced each bar into 3 pieces for a total of 6 bars of steel. I'm going to put these in the forge one at a time. And using a little kiss block in between my dies, I'm going to forge these down to a octagonal shape because we're going to twist each one of these bars. If we use crispy sharp corners, then these corners can cause sometimes problems. Got 4 of the 6. Here's number 5. See that little kiss block between the dies? It's keeping the dies at the specific distance away from each other. 6 bars. Now I'm going to twist them in my twisting machine. This is a rigid pipe threader. It moves a little bit slow, but it does the job very well. It's very strong. Once I've twisted it 4.5 times per linear inch, then I will forge this bar square. That nice square bar. Kiss blocks are fantastic. So it's 1 down and 5 to go. So I'm going to rinse and repeat for every one of these bars. With all 6 bars twisted, 3 clockwise and 3 anti-clockwise, it is time to clean up 2 sides, 2 opposing sides. Look at all this steel. These bars are stacked in such a way that it's a counterclockwise bar, a clockwise bar, a counterclockwise bar, and a clockwise bar, counterclockwise bar, and a clockwise bar, stacked on top of each other. These give these opposing twists. Just cut off the ends here. Once the billet is sealed up, I do a low penetrating weld. I'm going to put the whole billet in the forge. It doesn't quite fit, so we'll weld it in sections Give those some light taps. Keep in mind the material is tall, but really quite narrow. Just want to set these welds neatly. Such a big and radiant heated piece. Perfect. Time to let this cool, and then we will be grinding all the welds off. Every one of those MIG welds needs to be ground off. If they're not ground off, I'm going to be hammering them into the pattern, and I don't want to have that weld bead in the pattern. So just in case there's any kind of gaps or any kind of silliness, I'm just going to be running a couple more cycles at forge welding temperature. Look at this long bar. Majestic. We're going to slice a couple slices off of this billet. There's one. There's the other. These are going to be the bolsters of our integral keyhole knife. Then we're going to cut on a 45-degree angle this billet off. And we'll weld those bolsters on a handle too, so we can move it in and out of the forge easy. Once it's up to forge welding temperature, let's give that a couple good quality taps and put those pieces together. So the reason why we cut this on a 45-degree angle is so that we can bend these layers so it curves up and into the tip. You can see me bending these layers, not really forging too much, just manipulating, moving those layers. This gives a really nice visual effect. We're going to draw out that blade a little bit more. Draw out the bolster a little bit more. And let that billet cool. Once it's cool, we're surface grinding it here. Surface grinding the sides of the bolster so everything is center. We cut a little slit into there so that when I heat it up here, you can see what's happening. You take a chisel and just open up that bolster. This way that one steel lug drops down a little bit more. It allows for a little bit more curve in the handle. Alright, then some profile grinding. Get that shape where I like it to be. Again, back to the surface grinder, make sure everything is center. And then we're going to drill this hole. Little center punch. We'll start by drilling a 1/4 inch hole. And we'll step that up. The big hole is now a 1/2 inch in size. With the bandsaw, we're just going to cut off this excess material here. You cut right through into the hole. Now here's a little trick that is very helpful. That platen, very thin platen, is set at a small angle. This way, when I grind the shape of the lugs here, there's going to be a large side and a smaller side. So we'll press the wood in from the large side to the small side. A small pinhole I drilled. And then we're going to coat this bolster and ricasso area with Kondersal. Kondersal is an anti-scaling compound. Keeps the scale from forming on the handle area. And the knife is quenched. Goes good through the quench. Look at that beauty. Then we're going to temper it at 400 degrees. I temper in the kitchen oven. Let's find some handle material here, shall we? I'm thinking I'd like to use some kind of fruity wood, so something with a lot of color in it. I love these burls. This particular block looks kind of nice. So we're just going to clean it up on the grinder, and then we're going to mark out the shape of the keyhole and profile that on the belt grinder. Very easy to do. And then using this press, I'm going to just press in the footprint, as it were, of the bolster. And then we can shave the material off closer and closer to the line. Not too much, leave a little bit. In preparation to pressing, we're going to heat up the bolster area and these lugs with the torch. And we're going to put it in this little milling vise. We're going to press it to shape. In this little spacer, we're going to press it in a little bit further so we're in the center of the handle here. Now as it cools, we're going to have it cool while it's clamped up in this F-clamp. This way those bolsters will not pull away from the wood, but be stayed onto the wood. Let's cut off that material. And profile. Again, we got a bit of a shape drawn on with the marker. Before we take it to the final shape, let's do a bit of surface grinding on that handle. The handle sits a little bit proud of the bolster. And we can drill that pinhole now. I'm going to glue in a little stainless pin. I'll keep that nicely together. And let's start the chamfering on the handle. So we're going to put a 45-degree chamfer on the bolster areas first. Let's not touch the wood yet. The steel likes to heat up, so I will put it in a little pot of WD-40. And that WD-40 really helps it cool without staining the wood. So I took a belt and I split it in half, so it's a 1-inch wide belt. This really helps me clean up the underside of the handle. Again, always cooling in the oil, very necessary. And then finally, we're going to be using this scalloped belt. It has very comfortable and soft edges, so it does a really good job just cleaning up that handle nicely. It blends in all those lines, makes everything nice and comfortable. I'm just tapering the bolster a little bit so that it tapers down towards the blade. Now we can begin a bit of work on the blade. Using the waterfall platen, I can clean up that blade to handle transition. Just like so. Gives a nice little perfect radius. And then we can grind the blade. So starting off, we're going to grind our pre-bevel. This will set the edge of the knife apart from the rest, so that when we grind the flats, the edge will stay nice and cool. Now let's grind the flats. This always takes a little bit. It takes us 10 or 15 minutes to grind a big blade like this. I always take my time. But look how neat that is. Straight off the grinder. So before I continue, I'm going to use a 220 grit belt. Just take away most of those deep 36 grit scratches. Next up, we're going to be using the waterfall platen again. This is always a little bit, you have to kind of play around with the tension and the speed. Once it's set, then you can start grinding. I really like the waterfall platen because it gives a nice sweeping plunge. It's not a very sharp angle. It's a nice little graceful radius. And then, because we have a harpoon clip on this knife, we're going to grind that harpoon clip now. I have a little angled block that I use this for. There we have. Everything on the grinder is done. Now it's time to put the logo in. My touch mark is a JVB with a maple leaf. My fiber laser does a good job putting it in. And now we can work on the hand sanding. The hand sanding is quite a tedious part. You have to make sure that all the machine scratches are out. So this takes a number of hours to do. But I usually put on something nice to listen to. And I just hand sand and hand sand. The blade, the handle, the ricasso, the bolster, the swedge. Every little part needs to be hand sanded. And once it is hand sanded, look how smooth everything looks. But because this is Damascus, we want to etch the pattern. So coating with a nail polish to keep the acid off of the wood. Give that a good rinse and a good wash. Dip it in that acid. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. How's that pattern looking? Very nice. Very nice. Once we're finished etching, we're going to just sand to a very high grit. So a 1200 grit. So all the rest of the handle, the blade, every little part needs to be sanded up to 1200 grit now. The pattern is looking really cool. After all that hand sanding, we're going to polish. Polish all those layers. Make sure everything is very shiny. Not just shiny from one direction, but polish at all angles. Up, down, left, right, backwards, forwards. Every little part. Look at that nice handle. I am now coating the handle again with nail polish. The nail polish will act as a resist again as we go into the coffee etch. Coffee etch will really increase that contrast and make it very black and white. So make sure we clean that, all the steel very good. Clean it with a cloth, because you really can't clean it good enough. And into the instant coffee. Let's let that knife soak there for a while. While it's soaking, I'm going to be working on a little nut for the front of the sheath. I'm going to thread that. My lathe is a 1927 South Bend lathe. Does a great job. Using the Scotch-Brite wheel, we're going to really polish it. On the buffing wheel too. Get that nice and clean. Now because it is a Damascus button, it needs to be hardened. So I strung it up on a little wire here. Now you can see the pattern a little bit already. Have a look at our knife. See if it's doing well in the coffee. Oh yeah, look at that contrast. Beautiful. Shiny and dark. So take it out. Quickly remove the nail polish with some acetone. And heat everything with the heat gun. And spritz some gun oil on everything. I'm going to put a clamp on my drill because I want to sand this nut. So you got thin strips of sandpaper. A little sanding pad. Make sure it gets to a nice fine grit. After etching and coffee etching it, look how nice it looks. But that's not all. We're also going to make a little cabochon. Cabochon is a little plate in the front of the sheath. And it's kind of an elliptical, so it's going to look really nice, I think. It is the same material as the handle was made of, so it will match. Going to dome that cabochon slightly. Make sure we sand it really neatly. After a little polish, it starts to look very nice. Nice and fruity. And at this point, we're going to just make a nice little bolt or screw that will hold the button onto the sheath through the cabochon, like so. I'm taking this to Buffalo Bones, and he will be working on the sheath for me. He's a fantastic sheath maker. Wow, I just got the knife back. Check it out. On the face of the sheath, we have black shark skin. And on the back, we have smooth cowhide. This sheath is hand-stitched around the perimeter and around the cabochon. And look at this knife. That was about 7 days of work. That handle is so pretty. My friend Drew Rice says it's like you're flying over a forest. I agree completely. Those 6 twisted bars look so nice together. Almost looks like little flowers. The sheath and knife pair beautifully. A beautiful handmade knife, of course, deserves a beautiful handmade sheath. Look how good these go together. Thank you so very much for watching. It's been such a pleasure to make this knife. It has so many fun details. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I try to answer them all. See you on the next one.